Hey guys, a very good morning and welcome to a new video. So in today's video, I'm going to be explaining to you how to effectively backtest a trading strategy on TradingView and how to use the replay tool effectively. So with that said, let's just dive straight into this video and get started. So to begin with, as you guys can see over here, I have the pound dollar chart on my screen, and before we dive into the chart, I just need to explain you guys something real quick. So first of all, what you need to do, and I'm just going to make a little table over here, is that you need a trading strategy, right? Because otherwise you're not going to be able to backtest anything. And this trading strategy, and sorry for my handwriting, but this trading strategy needs to consist of certain things before you can effectively backtest it. So first of all, we need to know, okay, where is my stop loss going to be placed? So stop loss is number one. Then what I need to know is, okay, when am I going to take an entry? Then what you also need to know is, how am I going to manage my trade? So when am I going to take profit? When am I going to set my stop loss to break even, for instance? So that's all about trade management. And then what you also need to know is, okay, what are my confluences? So confluences are, for instance, 61.8 Fibonacci level, your supply and demand zones, channels, patterns, etc., etc., or even RSI, bullish, bearish divergence, whatever you want to call it, volume indicators, EMA crossovers, EMA retests, break retests of the EMA. So those are all the confluences that you need. So before being able to backtest a certain strategy, what you need to know is, okay, where am I going to place my stop loss? When am I going to take an entry? Where or how am I going to manage my trade? And what are my main confluences, which I'm going to use every single time over and over again to be able to backtest my strategy effectively. Because one of the most important things that you need to know is that when backtesting a strategy, you have to do the same thing over and over again. Because what you're going to be testing is that certain strategy with a certain set of rules, but those rules have to be the same every single time. Otherwise, there's not going to be any added value in backtesting a certain strategy. So every single time the stop loss needs to be the same, or the stop loss placement, the entry needs to be the same, the management of your trade needs to be the same, and the confluences that you use also need to be the same. So with that said, let's just dive straight into the backtest, and let me show you guys what you need to know. So first of all, before starting, where you want to go to is to the replay button over here up top, and just go to a random spot on the chart. So for instance here, and what you'll see is that all the chart in front of us has now disappeared, and we are now situated on the 25th of May 2021. So what I usually do when backtesting is that I start on the daily or the 4 hour, for instance, and I just go from there all the way back down to the lower time frame, and then take my potential entries. So looking at this chart, first of all, what do we see? Well, of course we see we are at resistance, right? Quickly always look to the left, and what we can see over there is that we also have an area of resistance situated over there, right? So this is an area of resistance within the market from where we could potentially drop down to the lower to lower price levels. So with that known, we can then go to the 4 hour time frame, and what we can then see on the 4 hour time frame is that we potentially have an overextended move in towards the highs, and after that an ascending channel, right? So let me just draw it in correctly for you guys. So we have this ascending channel, and if we see the ascending channel, what do we have? We have the 1, the 2, fake out on the second high. So the third touch was this, so therefore it is a valid short, right? Or the drop is valid, and we have channel maturement. So that said, we know, okay, our bias is in towards the downside. Why? Well, we have an overextended move in towards the highs. After that, we have the ascending channel or wedge, and we are situated at daily resistance. So with that said, what we can now do is look at the lower time frame and see, okay, well, can we then spot a potential trade? I always try to personally focus on the 1 hour when backtesting, not really going any lower, because yeah, the 1 hour is mainly the time frame on which I draw my trend lines and Fibonacci levels. So with that said, what we can now see is that we have this ascending trend line. So essentially we had a mini uptrend, right? So we had this high, this higher low, higher high, but now we have a new lower low in comparison to this higher low. So we know, okay, the 1 hour trend has switched. So what we now know is that the overall trend is towards the downside. And why is that? Well, because on the daily, we are going down. On the 4 hour, we are going down. And on the 1 hour, we are going down. So this, for instance, could be a confluence of yours, so being bearish on all time frames, to take a potential trade. Because it's also important to know is that the more often, or the more time frames, that are bearish, the higher probability your trade will be if you take a short on, let's say, the 1 hour. Because the chart could be telling you, okay, you have to short on the 1 hour, but the 4 hour and the daily could still be bullish, and therefore the probability of your 1 hour short will be lower. So that's something that you have to remember and understand. So currently looking at the 1 hour time frame, what we can then see is that, okay, well, we broke the trend. What you can then do is draw in this fib over here. And then what you know is that, okay, well, we have an area of demand or supply, over here. So this is our supply zone, because these are two 50% body candles, which take out structure over here, because this is a higher low. So that higher low gets taken out. So then what you want to do is, for instance, and then according to my strategy, is wait for a nice pullback to then enter on, let's say, the 618. So you can just press this play button over here, or the one on the left, which plays the chart automatically. But I always like just using the candlestick play button, which goes 1 for 1. And then boom, what do we see? We see the 618 and another tap in towards this area of supply alongside a double top. Furthermore, what we also have is on the lower time frame this beautiful ascending channel, where we have the 1, the 2, boom, fake out on the high, and now I'm expecting a drop. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be shorting from the double top over here, from the high of the second high, and then stop loss can be placed above the fib level, or it can be placed on, let's say, the 0.88 or 0.786. Feel free to just backtest what you want. For now, I'm going to place it on the 0.88. And then target also has to be the same. So remember, stop loss needs to be the same. So for instance, I use fib levels, or supply and demand levels can also be used. So either place your stop loss above supply and demand, or place your stop loss on the same fib level as always. So in this situation, I'm going to be placing my stop loss on 0.88, targeting the -27. So we have a 1 to 2.92. Then what we do is press play again. And then what we see is that essentially, yeah, we were about 1 pip away or whatever from our target. But what I personally do is that, for instance, when I break out of a pattern, like over here, I set my stop loss to break even. So managing risk, and from there I just let it ride. So probably I would have closed it when it was 1 pip away from my target, but I'm still, just for the idea of it, in this situation, I now placed my stop loss to break even once we broke out of the channel. And now essentially what you see is that we hit break even, which isn't a problem, but it's just more important that you always do the same, so that the data, that you generate will always be the same, right? So now what we can do is we can delete the chart, and we have made our first trade. So then what you want to do is click play again. And now what we can see is that essentially we've seen a trend break, right? Because we took out this lower high from this high. So lower high, low, lower low. So again, we had some kind of channel / wedge, broke out up to the upside. Then what I want to do is take, for instance, the first break retest, set my fib over here. Now, what we see is we have the 618. So for instance, you take the trade upon the 618, set stop loss on the 0.88, target the -27 fib extension level, and then let it ride again. And now what you can see is that, for instance, what you could do is, okay, well, what I've now done is I've broken out of, let's say, this kind of descending price action over here we broke the trend line, so now I can set my stops to break even and just let it ride. And what you'll see is then once again it's 1 pip away from the target and it goes to break even. But yeah, still for the sake of it, you probably would have closed the position over here, but still this is kind of the way that you have to backtest. And it's all about or what I'm trying to show you guys here is that it's all about doing the same thing over and over again. So yeah, as you guys can see, my stop loss was continuously placed on 0.88. I set my trade to break even once we broke out of the trend line or out of the pattern. My target was always the same, and my entry pattern, or the way that I enter on the 618 was also always the same. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have a stop loss placement, which is always the same. The way that you manage your trade always needs to be the same. The way that you enter a trade always needs to be the same. So for instance, always on the 618. And the way that you use your confluences and higher time frame analysis also always needs to be the same. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video about how to backtest. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to ask me through Discord. The link is in the description down below. Once again, thank you all for watching, and I wish you all a very pleasant weekend. Thanks, guys.